Hello, my name is Mary Patillo. I'm the chair of the Black Studies Department at Northwestern, and just thrilled to be here. So we are delighted to host this event off campus, and we thank the Reverend Dr. Michael Neighbors and Second Baptist for hosting us. A round of applause. Their hospitality has been really incredible. It's actually easier to do the event here, it feels like, than to do it on Northwestern's campus. You all have made it incredible, so thank you. It's still important to recognize that Northwestern University sits on the traditional homelands of the people of the Council of Three Fires, the Ojibwe, the Potawatomi, and the Odawa, as well as the Menominee, Miami, and Ho-Chunk nations. It was also a site of trade, travel, gathering, and healing for more than a dozen other Native tribes, and is still home to over 100,000 tribal members in the state of Illinois. We must actively work to understand, to interrupt, and to repair the ongoing damage done by this occupation. That includes being educated about ongoing struggles for Native American and indigenous sovereignty and rights. The Allison Davis Lecture is named after Davis, who was a distinguished African-American psychologist and social anthropologist. He got his undergraduate degree from Williams and his PhD from the University of Chicago in 1942. He authored or co-authored 10 books over the course of his illustrious career, including Deep South, a social anthropological study of caste and class, which was published in 1941. In 1948, Professor Davis became one of the first African Americans to receive tenure at a non-historically Black institution. That was the school down the way, the University of Chicago. So what does Allison Davis have to do with Northwestern, you might ask? Well, the answer is Professor Leon Forrest. He was a faculty member in Black Studies from 1973 to 1997, and he chaired the department for many years. Allison Davis was a mentor to Professor Leon Forrest, and in October of 1981, Professor Forrest inaugurated and gave the first Allison Davis lecture in his mentor's honor. The Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences has been a generous supporter of the lecture for decades. Over the years, we've had an illustrious list of Davis lecturers, including Patricia Williams, Deborah Gray White, Glenn Lowry, William Julius Wilson, Mary Frances Berry, Kathy Cohen, Randall Kennedy, and last year's speaker, Kelly Lytle Hernandez. This year, we are mixing it up. This is the first year we've done it off campus. The first year we are co-sponsoring it with a community organization, the Shorefront Legacy Center. And the first year we are having an illustrious panel. First year we're having it had to be illustrious. I want to thank the students and the faculty in Black Studies for encouraging and inspiring this change of tradition. After all, Black Studies is also a part of Black Evanston. Black Studies would not exist without Black Evanston, because Black Evanston gave support to those first cohorts of Black students and activists in the 1960s. Today, our faculty, students, and staff work, live, rest, learn, organize, and play in Evanston. And with this event, we hope to strengthen the existing ties and build new ties between Black Evanston and Black Northwestern by recognizing the incredible moment of Black leadership in Evanston today. There are already a lot of great things happening between Northwestern and Evanston. Our neighborhood and community relations office, headed up by Dave Davis, and our Office of Community Education Partnerships, headed up by Professor Nicole Pinkard, are just two at the university level. And in Black Studies, our faculty member Kiana Ross has been working collaboratively on several projects on schooling in Evanston, including a documentary entitled Stolen School, on the closing of the Foster School in the 5th Ward. Perhaps some of you were interviewed for that documentary. Stay tuned for information about its premiere, and you can watch the trailer at stolenschool.com. And on that same note, there is a petition to change the name from Foster School to the Dolores Home School. And if you are interested, you can go to the Shorefront website. You can talk to Laurice afterwards. But again, in the spirit of community and community organizing, I wanted to make that announcement. Northwestern also has endowed a Lorraine H. Morton Professorship, which is currently held by our colleague, Professor Martha Biondi. So Northwestern is recognizing the past leadership, Black leadership in Evanston. And on that front, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge two great losses to Evanston's Black community in the past months, not the past month, months. That of former Fifth Ward Council member and co-founder of Family Focus, Dolores Holmes, whose daughter, I understand, is here today, and that of former Chief of Police and co-founder of many organizations, including the Fellowship of African American Men Youth Basketball Program and the Chessmen Club of the North Shore, Bill Logan Jr. It is on their shoulders on which our current panelists stand. Okay, now let me turn it over to my co-collaborator and co-organizer for the night, Laurice Bell from Shorefront Legacy Center, who has also collaborated on that documentary I just mentioned, so be sure to check it out, and on that petition I also mentioned. So I'll turn it over to Laurice.
Great. Can you hear me? Working? Hello? Yes. Hi, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Mary Patillo, who has really done the lion's share of this work to make this evening happen. I'm grateful to you, Kiana, for the introduction. And I want to tell you a little bit about Shorefront Legacy Center. We are guided by the principles of collect, preserve, and educate, and we are dedicated to documenting and sharing the history of Black communities along Chicago's suburban North Shore. Based in Evanston, I know all this stuff, but I got a little nervous. Shorefront ensures that the contributions and stories of Black residents are preserved and celebrated through its archives, collections, and educational initiatives, fostering a deeper understanding of local history and culture. I am grateful to be partnered with Northwestern. We have found that town-gown relations, though they're historically thought to be tough, we are really coming together, especially in our Black community, as we expand and recognize that there really isn't, Sheridan Road is not that far to cross for us. I'd also like to introduce our esteemed panel of Black Evanston leaders, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about them and their Black jobs. Marcus Campbell, Superintendent of Evanston Township High School. Marcus Campbell has dedicated his entire career to ETHS. A visionary leader, he is committed to fostering equity, excellence, and empowerment for students in Evanston. We then have Saul Anderson, the first Black male CEO of the Evanston Community Foundation. Saul Anderson is dedicated to fostering philanthropic leadership and creating lasting community impact in Evanston and beyond. Chief Shanita Stewart, a native Evanstonian and the first Black female police chief of Evanston. Shanita Stewart leads with integrity, focusing on trust building, transparency, and collaboration with the community. Shanita Stewart is also on the Shorefront Legacy Board. We then have Audrey Thompson, Director of Parks and Recreation in Evanston. Audrey Thompson is a steadfast advocate for inclusive programming and creating spaces that enhance the quality of life for all. We then have Ike Ogbo as Evanston's first Black Director of Health and Human Services. Ike is a leader in addressing health disparities and advancing the well-being of all residents. Next to Ike is Cherise Ledette. Cherise is the CEO of the YWCA Evanston North Shore. Cherise is a champion for equity, empowerment, and social justice, leading efforts to eliminate racism and empower women in the community. And finally, we have Monique Parsons, a second native Evanstonian and the first Black woman to serve as president and CEO of the McGaw YMCA. Monique is a transformational leader dedicated to equity, opportunity, and strengthening community ties in Evanston. Thank you all for joining us. Let's get started.
So the media team tells me we shouldn't have to move the mic down the row, so can folks hear us if we just talk right here? Yes? Everybody's good? Okay, wonderful. So this is a big panel. We were blessed with yeses from everybody that we asked. And so we're not going to do the traditional one question everybody answers because we'd get through one question. So we're going to start with one question that everybody will answer. We'll end with one question that everybody will answer, but then the other ones are going to be kind of directed at certain people. So I'll begin with the first question that we will go down the row with our powerful and concise answers, so we can get a lot of questions in. And that is, what is the special thing you bring as a Black person to your leadership position? In other words, how are you leading differently because you're Black? So you might think about specific barriers that you might have encountered either in Evanston or somewhere else, or you might think about ways you've overcome those barriers. But you can think specifically or more generally, but mostly what do you bring to this position specifically because you're Black? We'll go right on down the line.
All right. Well, first I want to thank Northwestern University's Black Studies Department and Shorefront for hosting this gathering and for inviting me. I made the list. So thank you for that. So this was the most difficult question for me to answer because I don't think I'm that special, right? I think I'm doing what most of us would do and are doing in our roles. So because that was the hardest one for me to ask, I asked one of my mentors, and I said, you know what? You know how I am. You know this question is hard for me, so answer it for me. Tell me what you think, because I know what I'm trying to do. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm meeting the mark, right? And of course, yes, there have been things that make me move differently. I mean, I'm a Black woman, so I'm going to be different in everything that I do. I bring that with me. So I'm going to just read to you what she said, and you know, I guess I agree a little bit, but it made my day, and she's my truth teller. So let me say that, she's my truth teller. And she said, I think the special thing you bring is selflessness. The work is never about you, it is always about the community, the youth, the families, the mission that you serve. I think the other thing is that you have an unwavering and specific commitment to building a pipeline of Black leaders. You also are fluid in how your leadership serve those in need. Where I think other leaders are really committed to a specific goal, you are able to flex based on the actual need at the time, especially for the most marginalized. So overall, she said it's the selflessness for her. So yeah, I mean, yes, I guess so, but I would say that I'm also graced for this. It is very challenging, can be, to lead while Black. And so because of that, I'm so glad that over my, past years of moving into heavy or higher leadership, especially that of a CEO, that I was able to mature along the way to a point in my career that when I received the opportunity to become the CEO, I had already figured out who I was and what my purpose was. And so I was able to move in that space fearlessly. And I don't think that if I had accepted this role or started out my career saying in 5 years I want to be a CEO, that I would have been ready for it, because I had to go through some things. I had to experience some things. I had to thicken my skin, because it's not, we were talking about this earlier, that the higher the elevation, the heavier the weight. And so, if and when I was ready to elevate, I had some thickness about me that allowed me to move in a way that I had nothing to lose. And so that's hopefully how I show up every day in what I do, not only in my position as CEO for McGaw YMCA, but in my service to Evanston Township High School as a school board member. My hope and desire is that whatever I do, whatever I engage in, I leave it on the table, and it's really not about me, so.
All right, so Monique is always very hard to follow. And this is my second panel with her, so here we go again.
Here we go.
But also good evening to everyone, and thank you, Mary, for bringing us together. Thank you, Larice, for bringing us together. And thank you to this illustrious panel, because I feel like I am definitely the newbie here amongst this team, but I am very honored to be here. What I bring, and so for me, what I've always tried to do most is transform. And so when I say transform, I think I bring transformational leadership here to Evanston and to the YW. And I say that because when you think individually about yourself or even an organization, in order to transform and to become who you were meant to be, you first have to know yourself and understand yourself. And the same with an organization. We have to understand the perspectives of others and how they see us. And so coming into the YWCA, I was very connected to the mission and to the work, because parts of, I may get into this later, but parts of the work that we do have impacted my family personally, on a personal level. And then when I think about just my own lived experience of, again, being a woman, a Black woman, and a small-framed Black woman, I've been, dismissed in a lot of situations, underestimated the work that I can do. And so I want to make sure that being in this leadership role, I am able to show up in a very authentic way. So the way you see me tonight is the way you'll see me at any part of the day, at any event. I'm the same way at home. And so that's important for me, because that's how I build trust. That's how I inspire people. But I also feel that that's how I really use my voice, and how I prove the work that I do is top-notch, and there's no reason for you to dismiss me. So when anyone comes to me, I want to make sure that I make time to really lean into this transformational leadership, because I want them to be able to walk away and say, I got something from that I can use, no matter what it is. It could be a hello, but when I say hello back, it is it's sincere. And 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna ask you something, or I'm gonna dive into another conversation, or I'm just gonna tell you how my day was, whether you asked or not. And so, again, it's because being a Black woman and leading this organization that is focused on eliminating racism and empowering women is a full-time, rigorous, very demanding role that, we talk a lot about how lonely it is at the top, but it's not that it's lonely because we don't know how to do the work or it's too much for us. It's because we are trying to ensure that as we move forward with the work, we are thinking about those that have laid the foundation for us, and preserving and honoring their legacy, but also making sure that we're reaching back as we climb to bring others with us. And so that's a lot to do. And it's especially a lot to do when we still have barriers that we're facing every day. And so that transformational leadership for me is important, because I want to see everyone that I touch, every organization that I'm with or that I connect with, I want them to see themselves or itself for who it really is, lean into that, and show that every day. Be consistent with that, and that will get you further. And so that's what worked for me, and that's what I lean into all the time, and that's what I bring to Evanston.
Thank you.
Good day, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this special occasion. For those who do not know, I lead a very special department in the city that just recently celebrated 150 years of existence. The Health and Human Services Department was established in 1874, which marks 150 years this year. We just had a celebration a couple of weeks ago. So what do I bring? I would say resilience. The way that I picture, can you guys hear me? All right. The way that I picture resilience is looking at it from a standpoint of providing the impetus, the aptitude, the necessary tactics to provide services here in the community. Even when people sort of judges your credentials or your capacity as a director leading an establishment that is 150 years old. And in order for me to establish this resilience, I sort of tune out those negative voices in order for me to focus on what's ahead. I take input, I look at insights in order for me to fashion programs that will benefit the community. Not only that, even with the work that is done at the Health and Human Services Department, we do have a lot of supporters, but we also have individuals who question what the health department does. And that was quite evident when we were responding to COVID-19, of the importance of the health department. So I think as a health department where there are a number of questions as to what we deliver to the community, I'm always constantly defending or providing information as to what we do as a Health and Human Services Department. And obviously, this is a department that has existed for 150 years, and to be attending to such questions, you would think that a given of the importance of public health in our community. I have worked in Evanston for quite a long time. Even though I'm considered an outsider, I think I'm still embedded in the fabric of the community. And in order for me to deliver services, I have to be aware of the cultural awareness of the community by learning and understanding. That actually gives me ideas and concepts to develop programs that benefit the community at large. That's very essential. Being aware of the cultural and the cultural differences that exist. Even though we might think that we are the same, we simply aren't. So being able to understand that and being in the community and fielding questions and also getting questions and answers regarding a cultural awareness in the community, I think is very important. Another thing that I would say that I bring to the table is that I enjoy hearing various opinions and perspectives. My perspective might not be the best perspective. I like incorporating ideas, ideologies, concepts, different perspectives in order for us to achieve a desired goal. It might take alternative routes in order to arrive at the destination, but as long as we arrive at the destination and be able to provide our community with the services and resources needed, I think that's victorious. So.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I am Audrey Thompson again, Director for Parks and Recreation. And I really have to say that I believe as a Black woman, a Black leader working in the city of Evanston, I think I bring the spirit of collaboration. I feel like I work with so many organizations. I feel like we do really good work in Parks and Rec. We have a lot to do, I'm sure some of you all are thinking about some of those things that I also need to do. But I think I started, and I am 48 years old, and I've only worked for 2 organizations in my life. 17 years for Mississippi Children's Home, coming here 14 years ago. And I will say that in each of those positions, I started not as a director, but as someone who needed to, really follow. And so I feel like I bring a sense of service. And I'll tell you that I am reading a book by Chad Sanders now, and it's about black magic. And it talks a lot about code switching. It talks about, trying to figure out who you are as not just a black leader, but a black person. And coming from really humble beginnings, my parents were live-in maids, maid and butler to white citrus tycoons in Florida. And understanding what they had to do moving from Florida to Mississippi, not much better, maybe worse. I have to really think about, how I got here. And what's really, really important is for me to not let my parents down. Neither of them are here with us. And so just understanding that they taught me so much, and they taught me how to listen. So I believe as a black leader, I bring that. From very traumatic experiences, I bring a heart of empathy, which is why I went to school to be a social worker. I didn't go to school to be a Parks and Rec department director. So that's why my budget continues to rise and rise, because I keep asking for stuff over and over again, because I understand just how much we need in the city of Evanston. But I hope that folks, not what I see myself as a leader, but other people will think that I listen, because we don't always get it right. We get it wrong a lot. But I hope that when we get it wrong, we're listening and we're able to say, we shouldn't have called that the daddy-daughter dance. We should have called it the family dance. That we're doing that. I think what's really difficult is understanding just how much people expect of you, how much you expect of yourself, but understanding just how much others expect of you, and how it may not be as easy to get it wrong sometimes and have the entire Evanston Roundtable and Evanston Now looking at every mistake. I think I'm prepared because I started off as an ombuds person, which that was my job, to listen to all the complaints in nursing homes. So I think I got a really good start with that. But I think it's very difficult to be a black leader and to have everything that you do be scrutinized. And for people to believe sometimes that it's because, like, does she even know what she's doing? Okay, all fairness, when they told me I had to have the lakefront dredged, I didn't know what that meant, and I needed to Google it. That is very true. But I think as a black woman, I'm able to figure it out. I'm able to figure it out. I figured that dredging means to take sand from one part of the beach to another so you all have some place to swim. So as a black woman, as a black leader, I'm able to figure it out. And I think that's what we do together. We figure it out. Chief?
Well, as a black leader, I'm going last next time we do this before I agree to do any panel. There's been a lot of good things said. I agree with the empathy, cultural awareness, and I think your lived experience and owning your lived experience. I think a lot of people go into jobs or professions and they give up that lived experience, like they have to cultivate to whatever the expectations and what that job looks like. I think that job and that leadership looks like you and what you bring to that position. I think as a black leader, you deal with implicit bias, but also I think what's never talked about is the resistance to change. No matter what that looks like, it could be positive change, but it just being there, you get scrutinized for it. And I think for me, just staying focused on long-term goals and seeing the bigger picture with justice and equality and what that looks like, and trying to get to those goals no matter who you are, what you look like, and staying true to that. But there were a lot of things I think that were mentioned. I'm not taking no more. We got, 2 more people to go? And I don't want y'all feeling like I did, so I'm going to pass it to you, Sal.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you to the Northwestern University Black Studies Department and Shorefront Legacy Center for bringing this group of people together. Thank you for the invitation. I'm a preacher's kid. It's a little tough for me to sit up here and not initially say, I'd like to give honor to God, who is the head of my life. So I got through 5, yeah, you know, I'm like too close to the pulpit here to not say it. We will play it a little later, though. You know, there's been so many great answers here. You know, and so many uplifting kind of positive perspectives. I have to be honest, when I first looked at this question, the first thing I thought about what influenced my leadership style and my leadership journey was actually anger. And I don't mean like, you know, trash the place anger. I mean like righteous fire in your belly anger, you know. I think everybody on this panel has mentioned times when their decision making has been questioned, and we talk about that in our leadership journey, you know. And I think when I start thinking back, I was fortunate. I went to an elementary school that was 95% black. I had a black principal. I had, black teachers throughout my, early elementary school. Then I went to a college prep magnet school for middle and high school, and the first assignments that I did, all my teachers asked me if I cheated or if I traced my art project, or if I did all of that. And I started realizing people have been questioning whether or not I have the capability to do the things that I absolutely can do for as long as I can remember. That makes me angry. You know, when I got to undergrad, I got to graduate school, whether or not I walked, across the stage with National Honor Society cores on or Dean's List cores, when I got to the next stage, people questioned whether or not I deserved to be there, or if I was an affirmative action case, or if I was there because they lowered standards for me to be there. And so when I got into leadership roles and started getting questioned, I just kind of was like, okay, this is just the game that gets played at every stage. And, so what that did is make me go back and take that anger and turn it into motivation. Turn it into motivation to do something different. When I went to nonprofit work, the Chronicle of Philanthropy did a study a few years back that shows that black leaders raise less money with more restrictions than their white counterparts. So I went to philanthropy, and we're changing that at ECF, because we're not going to say that the best ideas on how to help our community should come from someplace other than the people who are part of our community who are experiencing that every day. And so I think that kind of righteous anger has been the #1 motivating factor for me, the one thing that influences my leadership style. And we've got a few of our staff people in the room. I saw a couple faces. They can attest. I'm not like angry every day. I'm not yelling at people. I want y'all to be clear on that. I'm a pretty friendly guy, but I am motivated in terms of what we're doing at ECF. What I've done with my career has absolutely been fueled by this belief that I'm good enough, and I haven't been treated as such. And I think if you're looking around at a system that we live in that was not designed with us in mind, or if it was designed with us in mind, it was designed to oppress us. If you look around at those systems and you don't get a little bit mad, and you're not paying attention, and you just don't care. And I'm paying attention and I care, so I'm angry, and it inspires me every day, and I try to carry that through.
Such great answers. Good evening, everyone. Marcus Campbell, Superintendent, Evanston Township High School. And once again, everyone's thank the organizers of tonight. I want to do the same. Thank you for putting this panel together, and thank all of you for being here tonight, and those of you who are watching online. The first thing that came to mind when I saw this question was that I bring my blackness to my black job. I was born in a black family. I bring that to my job. I was raised in a black church. I'm also a PK, right? Preacher's kid, right? I bring that to my job. I went to black schools on the south side of Chicago. There were, that's right, swoop, swoop. There was Lindblom Technical High School. There was Lindblom Eagles, swoop. My teachers were black. My peers were black. I didn't have an integrated classroom until I got to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So I bring black schooling to the superintendency at Evanston Township High School. I'm the father of 2 young black boys. I bring that to my job. And I bring all of the narratives and the experiences of my friends to my job. I bring the friends that I lost to gun violence. I bring that every day, right? Also the friends that I lean on and depend on throughout my day on my text threads where we're sending memes and we're talking all day just to be in fellowship. I bring that to my job. So the values and the experiences, and I see my blackness as an asset, right, when I go to that office every day. Because I don't know what it's like to have low expectations of kids of color, because when I was in school, when I could sit around my third grade classroom and see Mary McLeod Bethune and Charles Drew and Shirley Chisholm just on the wall, and it wasn't Black History Month, it was a regular Tuesday, right? And so I bring a sense of purpose and my blackness to where I know I'm living a counter narrative every single day, and so that's why I'm unapologetically Black as superintendent.
And you have an office that represents that.
That's true.
Thank you all. This question is addressed to Chief Stewart, Monique Parsons as native Evanstonians, and Sharice Ledette, who came to Evanston from a Chicago organization, and others can chime in. Black folks and Black leaders are always facing questions of authenticity and legitimacy in their roles. And when we think about Black Evanston, there is an added layer of how deep do your ties to Evanston run? Are you born and raised here? How long have you lived here? What schools did you go to? Who are your people? How do you navigate the pressures of authenticity and legitimacy in this community with such strong and proud, such a strong and proud Black history? Yes, ma'am.
Fourth generation Evanstonian. I wear proud. I wear proud. I think being born and raised here, having my family, that's why I'm on the Shorefront Board for Abbeville, South Carolina for a better life. I'm honored to be an Evanstonian. I'm honored to not only know the history, but for me, it's to pay respect to the history of Evanston. My mother, we've had some tough times lately, and my mother was like, there's some tough times, but I think you were built to be the chief of Evanston during these tough times and do it the right way, understanding the history of Evanston. And when I say, especially the Black heritage of Evanston, for me, it's an honor to be visible. It's an honor to listen actively and ensure that the decisions I make are reflective of the commitment my family has had to Evanston. So even if it's extra things I'm doing outside the police department, but in the community with youth in the community, I really believe that people will inspire to take on positions of leadership when they see somebody in that position. So being the first African American female police chief, I can't get it wrong because I got too many people to come after me. And I take a lot of pride in that. And similar to what Sal kind of mentioned too, right? I've never celebrated being the chief of police of the Evanston Police Department because so many people that are from Evanston know me and my family celebrate it as their win. Heavy is a crown, but I wear it proudly. I really do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Born and raised in Evanston. How do we navigate the pressure? Evanston raised me, right? So I navigated in a space that I'm familiar with. And I would say to those that aren't, to just respect the history and the legacy that is of Evanston. It is a place that, I was born and raised in, and my principal, Mr. Elmore Johnson and Mr. Oliver Ruff, they were Black. So I remember seeing that as a, okay. It's not gospel music, Reverend neighbors, I don't know. So I was raised seeing that as a kindergarten. I saw Black leaders in my community. Now, Evanston was deeply, deeply, deeply segregated when I was a youngster, but it was still very diverse. My teachers were Black, right? So when I went away to college, to the University of Minnesota, I guess I had a certain swagger about me, right? Because I knew where I came from. I came from a community that cared for me, that loved me, that poured into me. So navigating this space for me is just, it comes with a lot of love, a lot of, pain, especially that exist in certain communities, certain segregated communities where almost everything was snatched away from it. And I'm speaking that of the Fifth Ward. So when you're in Evanston, and the reason why I always lead when I'm an Evanstonian is because and I know, pride is not a thing that we want to say, but I feel joy about the place that raised me. So I don't take it lightly. I don't take the history lightly. And I honestly get offended when there are individuals that move into the town and try to change who we are. I take that to heart. And when it's done without listening, without respecting, without appreciating who we are, without sitting down and having conversations with our elders that are in the community, without learning, without connecting, without showing up, that bothers me. It bothers me to no end, and if you know me, you know I'm the one that likes to connect dots. So I'm gonna be the first one to call you to try to introduce you to everybody in the town because I want you to get it right. I want you to love this place just as much as those that were born and raised in Evanston have loved this place for generations. And we love the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Because there's blood in everything that we have done here in this town. And because of that, we don't take it lightly. So, of course, as a leader, I build boundaries, about when you can approach me in the grocery store and call me and talk to me about certain things. But it's with respect. And I think because people see me, right, I'm accessible. Like, you don't have to go searching for me. You know where I'm at, literally. You can find me at the Y. You can find me at the high school. I pray in my town. My church is in my town. I raised my son in my town, raising my grandson in my town. So this is so special to me that all I ever want you to do, and I can only speak for myself as an Evanstonian, in learning how to navigate this space, is to just respect the culture and the history that is attached to it. Be patient, be humble, be transparent, and ask for forgiveness when you mess it up. Right? When you mess it up, just admit it and ask for forgiveness. And we take you in, no matter what, as long as we know that you are just here to be a part of this wonderful town that all of us have created. Not certain segments, but every last one of us. So that's how I do it.
For me, not being born and raised in Evanston, I would say that I am definitely blessed to have come into or transitioned into Evanston the way that I did. And so, majority of my career has been spent in the North Shore area. Even though I live south, I've always worked in the North Shore area. And then, for those of you all that don't know, I used to work at the YMCA, the not hers, the Metro Chicago Association. And so I had the ability to move around, meet a lot of people. And so, being there for 19 years, I used that. I leveraged that to come into a lot of the North Shore area, including Evanston, to connect and make ties and meet people, because I do understand the importance of that. Now, did I ever expect to work in Evanston? No. But as a little story, and I'm not sure if you know about this, Monique, and I swear this is the last time I'm going to bring her name up. But when Monique was well, I guess you were in the process of being hired or promoted to that CEO role at McGaw, I was in a CEO development program, and in that program, they used the McGaw YMCA as the vacancy that we had to interview for. And so I used that and did all my research. I called all my friends, and I heard everything there was to know about Evanston. I don't remember half of it today, but I will say that I learned during that time how proud, residents of Evanston were about their heritage, Black Evanston, and just the excellence that you felt being a part of that, or even coming into contact with someone. And so just learning all about that really made me, at that time, I was saying to myself, wow, I should really go for this position. But at the same time, I knew she had it. And so I didn't want to go up against her. But I think for me, when I think about navigating that authenticity and legitimacy, authenticity is it's not about where you're from. I think it's how you show up. And so ensuring that I showed up on my first day here in Evanston, acknowledging and, really honoring the legacy that I am becoming a part of. And so that's why I said I'm blessed, because so many people did reach out immediately, to take me in and say, let me introduce you to this person. You need to go here. You need to go there. And so my first 6 months, I don't think I did any real work because I was too busy trying to meet people. And so, breakfast with you, So, yes. And so I think, for me, it's really how you show up, how you respect, the individuals that, again, laid the foundation, that have paved the way for these positions, paved the way for the fight that we are still in, no matter how much progress has been made. And so I honor that. But I also think that showing up and staying consistent, and as I stated, showing up as my true self and being accountable for when I'm right, when I'm wrong, but also not trying to change Evanston. There's no reason for me to change Evanston. Evanston has embraced me, and you would think if you ask people that know me outside of Evanston, they think that that is where I'm from, because that's how I speak about Evanston. And so that pride is in me, because I see how you all have come together. And so that just means, the world to me. And so while I feel that I'm blessed, I've also met a number of people that came in around the same time that I did, in leadership positions that are no longer here. And some that don't necessarily feel the same way. And I can't speak for them, but what I can say is the difference I do feel is the way they showed up. And I don't care how much I brought with me experience-wise, that stays within the organization, because I was hired to do the work at that organization. And I will change that organization. You will see progress with that organization. We will do things that the YWCA never set out to do. But when it comes to Evanston, that's not my job. That's not what I was hired for. And I understand how to stay in my lane. And so with that, I think that is how I'm able to navigate it. And again, I'm just blessed to know so many people that support me, but also support the work that I'm doing, my career, and they know that if I'm here to make everything better, and I'm gonna do my best, to do so. And so I I wish I had a different perspective on that, but I don't because, again, I wasn't born and raised, but I feel like I was born into something great that is very accepting of me and who I am.
Audrey, did you want to jump in a little bit on
No,
this?
ma'am.
No,
because
go
I'm-
ahead.
Y'all Evanstonians hard on the sister. I don't know. And I came here, the first place they told me to go was to the Foster Senior Club, and that's where I went. But I think you hit it. You just have to, not try to change folks. I do think a couple of other things there's nothing wrong with like mixing it up, putting a little, gravy on top or something. But I feel like y'all are really hard on folks who are not from here. And the first question you ask, how long you been here, who your mom and them, that's the first question I'm saying. I'm not even from Illinois. Forget Evanston, I'm not even from Illinois. So I think you just come in and you try to do your best to listen and not tell folks that Evanston is not where it's supposed to be. I do need to learn boundaries because wherever they not finding you, they finding me. And my husband will tell you I am literally on the phone with y'all all day and all night, it seems. And so I need to learn some of those boundaries. But I love it. I love Evanston as if I was born and raised here. I don't even know who the mayor, I don't know if they got, do they have council members or what in my city? But I know about Evanston, so I love it here. That's it.
Wonderful. So just note, we are on question 3 of 8, so we gonna try to get it all in here. So next, again, this forum is about a bridge between Black Evanston and Black Northwestern. So the Black Studies Department is one of the anchors of Black Northwestern, but there are others, the Black Professional Network, NUBA, FMO, the 4 members only. So how can Black Northwestern participate in the growth of Black Evanston? How can Black Evanston participate in the growth of Black Northwestern? Do you have any concrete examples? I'm going to address this to Dr. Campbell, Ms. Stewart, and Mr. Anderson.
All right. Thank you for the question. So the past several years, ETHS, we've been hosting these student summits, and we started with our Black student summits back in 2013. And it's really a way for our Black students to see themselves, to love themselves as themselves, their perfect in their perfect way as Black kids, right? And the very first Black student summit we held, Northwestern students and faculty were a part of that, right? I think we had anywhere between 100 volunteers, Black volunteers in the community to come to that summit, to lead workshops, share experiences, be on a panel, and we've had administrators from Northwestern at the time. I think Chris Reynolds was the AD. He came and spent quite a bit of time, and we had professors in School of Education and Social Policy, Mesman, Destin, just so many folks from NU have been a part of that for the last 11 years, and that has just been a tremendously important partnership for us. We also have something called Black Men Lead, where Northwestern University students and professors get with ETHS Black staff and students and talk and fellowship and have barbecues and developing a mentoring mentee relationship. And I think that exchange has been mutually beneficial, and I look forward to continued partnerships with Black Northwestern and at least the Black representation and Black identifying folks at ETHS because it's been a great partnership for the last several years.
I think the key to bridging the gap is actually very similar to what Sharice was talking about when you talk about how do you get engaged as an individual in community. I think the first thing when connecting the community is just approaching with respect. And I've lived in Evanston for some time. I'll say one of the keys to getting along here is I actually worked here and I left and I came back. And when I came back, it was almost like I was born here. Like I don't know, got like a little extra credit for that or something. But I would say, I worked on the south side of Chicago for many years. And one of the things you see at times in academia is this: we drop in, we study, and we leave. And, you know, what you find is it's incredibly detrimental to the community where you have a situation where somebody's studying you or providing a support or a service for a set period of time, and then they take it away. And you don't see folks again until they're trying to bring something else, and they want to have that special little notation on their CV that said, I studied this in Inglewood, right? Because that's going to look good when you go out into these other academic professions without realizing the damage that you caused. And I think that the real key to bridging the gap here is to not treat Evanston like a potential research lab, right? This is a community with living, breathing folks, you know, who have real problems, who are, you know, trying to get their kids to school on time, who are trying to go to work, who are trying to put food on the table. Those things are very real, right? And so to just kind of treat a community like a research lab, you're never going to have the relationship that you want. I'm not ascribing this to Northwestern University. This is just a general sort of concept. Because I think we have a lot of great examples. I mean, some of them were mentioned. We have Dr. Ross here, Dr. Pinkert, I see Dave Davis, Eldashion Nix. These are all folks, Al Tillery, I don't believe he's here, but these are folks who are doing the work in our community, showing up every day, who are crossing over Ridge Avenue, going into other parts of the community that don't often get touched by the greater university, who are showing an interest in things that matter to the people here, who put a stake in the ground on doing work in community. And I think we just need more and more and more and more of that, right? People who see what's happening here. There's so many things going on in Evanston. We've talked about the diversity of Evanston, and I know this is coming up later, but like the demographics of this community are changing, because the affordability of this community is shifting to a place where the diversity is at extreme risk. And we have an opportunity. We have one of the world's foremost research institutions here in our community who can help us game plan around ways to maintain what's beautiful about this community. I don't dislike our northern neighbors, but I don't want to live in Wilmette, you know? I don't want to live in Kenilworth. I don't. I want to live here. I want to live here where my son has a black superintendent that he can look at, you know, and say, like, this man, when I get to school, is going to take care of me. I love the fact that Chief Stewart is here. If my boy gets in trouble, she's going to call me first, and I'll come talk to him. And I'll never forget one of the first situations she handled. She came to our office at ECF and spoke to us, and she said, you know, there's a young man who got in trouble at the high school. Won't go into the specifics, but she said, when I picked him up, I made sure I called the pastors, I called a couple of folks, and I called my mother, and my mother said, don't forget, he's still ours, right? And like, have a police chief in this community who does that, like, that's what I want, and that is at risk here. And so I think what we need is buy-in. We need, you know, from the community to start helping us figure out solutions to these problems, figuring out how to invest and strengthen our community, reaching in the community for employment opportunities with food service and maintenance and all those sort of things to help people maintain their roles here. And then I would love. So I went to State University. I went to Michigan State University, and you know, it was part of the infrastructure there that our students went into the community. I worked in a program called America Counts, so I was going into a Lansing, Michigan elementary school and tutoring kids in math. And I know that happens, but I would love to just like look out in the 5th Ward and look out across, you know, Second Ward, look at Oakton and Bessie Roads and some of these schools where, you know, where we have many of our kids of color, and see black students tutoring our black youth in schools. That's incredibly powerful, and I think we have a lot, we've made some headway there, but I think we have a ways to go, and we can absolutely do more on that front.
I think similar to what Sal said, like I have a great working relationship. Dave Davis, appreciate you. Danae works in athletics, and I think the difference for me is everybody on this stage in leadership roles, you'll never have an opportunity to have so many people that want to work with you, and we just don't get it the other way sometimes. I would love to have a better relationship with the Northwestern Police Department and then work jointly with them in this community or on campus. And I think the excuse, kind of what you said, sometimes people do it part-time, or the excuse is we don't have other people in leadership roles that want to work with us. Well, now you do. And like every department within the city that, I don't know one time where anybody on this stage has rejected collaborating with anybody to do it. And now it's kind of like, you know, everybody wants it a certain way until it's a certain way. And now it's like, oh, well, I was talking a big game, but I don't know if I want to get and play the game now, Coach. But we have to work together for the better. I don't show up, or we don't show up in different rooms because it's a benefit to us. It's a benefit to this city. And I think we're going to continue to do that, but, I can't dance by myself. I would like to dance a little bit with you.
So actually, Saul, you mentioned that this was, and this is the next question. So allyship, what role does allyship play in your work as a Black leader in Evanston? So especially as the city changes demographically, what about working with non-Black individuals and organizations? Are those individuals and organizations supportive or sensitive to Black issues in Evanston? So for this, I'm going to ask Mr. Agbo, Mr. Anderson, and Ms. Thompson.
Yeah, absolutely. The department and the city, we strive on collaborations and partnerships with various agencies. The Health and Human Services mission is actually to protect, preserve, and navigate various services with sustainable partnerships, which we're able to do not just by the health department, but other agencies. The department is actually one of the smallest departments, so we rely heavily on collaborations and partnerships. We do have this document that you might be aware of. It's called the E-Plan. It stands for Evanston Project for Local Assessment of Needs. And given that the health department is a certified health department, we are required to undergo a process of pinpointing or highlighting health priorities in Evanston. It is a remarkable, incredible document. If you haven't had the opportunity to review it, I would suggest you review it. It's actually on our website. And we were able to establish this document based on input, voices, and collaborations from various agencies, Connections for the Homeless, Northwestern, the two hospitals, Northwestern, Erie Family Health. All these individuals contributed to the E-Plan. And the E-Plan was able to dissect the priorities here in Evanston that we ought to embark on to prioritize what needs to happen in Evanston. We were able to highlight advancing health equity, and that's actually to remove obstacles that exist that result in lack of access to health, whether that means unemployment, poverty, discrimination. Also, we were able to identify mental health, and that exacerbated during COVID and even after COVID. It's not just a unique situation in Evanston, it is a global issue. And of course, climate resilience, and that pretty much tailors to how the climate impacts health. And when you take a look at this document with the voices and the collaborations and the inputs and the thoughts and the concepts from all those who collaborated, you can see that there were some themes which are quite unfortunate. When you dig deep into the document, you will see that some of the poor health outcomes that we have in Evanston are due to structural racism and issues. And this is something that is unfortunate. It's an unfortunate history in Evanston. And I say all of this to say, in order for us to come up with this profound document, we had to listen to many community members who chipped in, who provided their voices, and who embarked on this journey for us. So, as I stated earlier, if you haven't had the opportunity to read the document, please do so. It's not just owned by the health department, it's owned by the community of ways in which we can improve on these health priorities. This E-Plan actually expires in 2026, and just based on data, indicators, trends, and what have you, a number of these factors that I mentioned might make it to the next E-Plan, so stay tuned.
Very quickly. I think sometimes, depending on who you ask, allyship may be a negative term. So to the point where people will say it's more of a coalition rather than allyship. There's criticism that goes along with the term allyship. But I personally love my allies who don't look like me. who are sometimes navigating things in rooms that I am not in. And so I'm good with that. I will give you a couple examples. I think that when there were young men who were gunned down on Hovland, and when there was the same violence that took place a couple of blocks away from the Civic Center, where we're supposed to create laws that protect folks, I will say that the allies that came together didn't always look like me. And so I was appreciative to working with those allies, like the Moran Center, like, Connections for the Homeless. For those, I work with Interfaith. We work with a lot of different organizations whose executive directors don't look like me. I'm appreciative of, Patrick Keenan Devlin, who helped to change the code for the city that ensures that young people can get C-tickets instead of being arrested, and can work through, those complaint tickets by doing community service, or community engagement is what we call it now. And so I like that. So I am good with allyship, and I do believe it takes a village of people who look different in order to accomplish goals.
Yeah, I absolutely agree on that front. I will say, so I want to say we also have a board member here. This is Saul Anderson's thoughts. This is not the thoughts of the Evanston Community Foundation as an apolitical organization. But I'm going to say, when we start looking out at our recent election, and we're Evanston, so I feel like I'm relatively safe saying this, but I'm going to say that what we saw among the voting rolls is that we had a black woman running for president, and only black folks got behind her. Allyship is in a tenuous space when we have, the other side of the coin is someone who's actively talking about marginalizing black folks and brown folks and other folks of color, and still the only people who got behind, the majority of votes that got behind the black woman running for president were black folks. And I think one of the challenges that we see is that we often come into these terms that we use as shorthand because we want to be inclusive, right? I've been thinking a lot about the term BIPOC, and I think it's important to think about the needs of people of color, and I think we know the history of America has particularly brutalized black and indigenous folks. But the problem is that BIPOC becomes a buzzword. BIPOC becomes, what we do is we start smushing together all the challenges that people face, and then you can't see the unique challenges that people are facing within that buzzword. And so for me, when I look at my Latina brothers and sisters, I want for them to have, all of the things that America put on paper. When I look at my Asian brothers and sisters and my gay brothers and sisters, I want them to have all of the rights. But that doesn't mean that all their challenges line up exactly with what I see in the world. And I think what we've got to get to when we talk about allyship is not trying to create some big catch-all term that we can talk about everybody who cares about people having their rights protected and all that sort of thing. What we've got to do is recognize, when I see this black man in my world, I know he's facing this. When I see this black woman in my world, I know he's facing this, and I can get behind them on that. And when I see my Latino and Latina brothers and sisters, I can get behind them on the things that they are facing as well, but not at the expense of the things that I'm dealing with, right? At the inclusion of the things, right? And so I think we've got to think about allyship very differently. We're not aiming for the middle. We're aiming for everybody to have a chance to reach the top. And when we start doing these buzzwords and all this sort of stuff, I just think we lose a lot of that. And I know it's hard to get up here and make a statement and we got to list every single marginalized group in America, because America can marginalize like no other nation. So we can run a long list, and I understand why people create these terms. But in the end analysis, when we start using them, without recognizing the nuance, then we lose the power that we're actually trying to get to bond together. And I want us to start thinking about power together, right? Not power over, power with one another, and thinking about how we can build that through allyship and not just trying to smush everything together and it becomes that gray Play-Doh, you know, that you get. That's not what we're looking for. We want all the colors to stand out, all of them to be able to feel their, to accomplish their goals and their dreams without sacrificing anyone else's.
What challenges and maybe opportunities are on the horizon given the re-election of Trump as president, as you spoke to, Saul? We're thinking specifically of his attacks on DEI, on teaching and reading about racism and sexism, and his attacks on transgender athletes. Let's start with you, Marcus, and then we can go to Audrey.
Thank you. I told you I was raised in a black church, right? Pastor Neighbors, there's a song that comes, it says, there's a storm out on the ocean, and it's moving this old way. And if your soul's not anchored, you will surely drift away. I don't see a whole lot of opportunity. I see a whole lot of concern. I am very, very nervous as to what this could mean for Evanston Township High School and other schools that are committed to racial equity across the country. If the Department of Education is dismantled, there's a lot of unanswered questions. Maybe he needs congressional approval to do it. I don't know if that'll happen or not. But ETHS receives roughly $350,000 in title funds. And if there are conditions that are set where you can't talk about race and equity, you know, we certainly aren't going, and I got a board member down there too, but you know, we're certainly not going to walk away from our commitment to equity that's tied to title funds. We're just going to have to figure out how to do it, right? But then the stakes could be a lot higher than that. We get a lot of federal reimbursements for special education that total $3 to $4 million. What happens, right? If having to absorb that kind of financial impact changes the footprint of education in this town and every other school district that is committed to that conversation. So it's going to be a rough ride, y'all. And I think that maybe the opportunity is that, you know, we come together as not necessarily allies, but co-conspirators. That's what Dr. Bettina Love says. We come together as co-conspirators to really figure out how we get through this and manage this together. This has the potential to be catastrophic in our education system.
I don't have much to add. Well, I'm a PK too, and the storm is coming.
It's coming.
And, you know, I don't know. I don't. I came to Evanston, I saw Lorraine, my middle name is Lorraine, so when I saw Lorraine on the building, I just knew the job was mine. But now, I'm afraid. And not necessarily because of my funding. Dr. Campbell, you talked about funding. You know, my department is funded mostly by your tax dollars. But I am concerned that, you know, we have DEI and we're using that in the same sentence with the president who is the least qualified of any president that we've ever had. And so when we're talking about qualifications, it becomes very scary, especially since there are a lot of black leaders here, not as many as when I came there are more now than when I came 14 years ago. But if there's an attack on, you know, I've got friends, two of my same gender-loving friends were the first to get married in Louisiana. We're having conversations about what happens if that's overturned and they aren't married anymore, you know? And that feels, I don't know, the storm is coming, but I do think We have Governor Pritzker, who is getting together with other governors all across this country, and I think we need to be doing the same thing and trying to figure out how we look at diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how we are working to manage, and not to necessarily give back the money, but how do we work within that so we keep it, but that we're not in conflict with diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Maybe our language needs to move towards anti-discrimination.
Right,
you know,
absolutely.
so-
For sure.
So the health department has programs that are designed to provide services to community members irrespective of race, age, ethnicity. These assistance programs provide assistance to individuals who are behind their rent, undocumented residents, those who are homeless, on the verge of being homeless, those of low income, moderate income. So if these assistance programs are eliminated or dissolved, that will spell doom to hundreds of community members whom we serve. We are a department that is not only public health inclined, we have human service elements as well. On the public health side, most of our programs are supported by grants. As a matter of fact, we do have a number of staff members who are 100% covered by federal grants, and that enables us to conduct a number of public health activities, whether that means emergency preparedness or testing the beach water to ensure that it is safe for us to swim, conduct inspections at our restaurants, even rat control. And if those funds stop coming, that wouldn't be pleasant at all. The department does not necessarily have a huge budget. As a matter of fact, we have one of the smallest budgets in the city. So for me, it raises a significant concern, not just from human services spectrum, but also for public health. What does this all mean? What we have done so far is have meetings amongst ourselves to start brainstorming and thinking of other avenues and ways in which we can continue to provide services to our community members if or when it happens. And another thing that we have incorporated is maintaining situational awareness, keeping our ears to the ground to see what's coming down the pipeline.
Yes. Okay. So just a couple of things. From the perspective of the YWCA, and I agree with everything that has been stated, our very mission, every aspect of our mission will be challenged with the new administration. And so for me, the work can't stop. And none of our work can stop. But as Saul said earlier, how he turns that anger into motivation, that is what I've been preaching to my team at YW. And so how we basically take that anger, that fear, that, the unknowing, and how we use that to fuel whatever work we'll do, that's what we'll do. And so when I think about the DEI work, which it's frustrating because we just hired a new director and he's sitting back there, and he's doing some amazing work already walking in the door. And now we may have to not, close the department, make any changes like that. But to your point earlier, Dr. Campbell mentioned, like, how do we change that framework? And so softening how we do the work to make others, feel okay with it or allow us to continue on. So it's just very frustrating when you think about what's to come. But I also think, just quickly back to another thing that worries me, I believe in allyship also, and I believe that it takes all of us. It takes the diversity at the table to really move all of our work forward. But what worries me with the Trump administration is that those, and it was also said earlier, but those that consider themselves our allies right now have to be ready to be consistent with that. You know, be able to show up, take action, because action will be needed, but also don't do it in the darkness. Do it in the light alongside, you know, us, because they will have, they'll have the ability to make change and advocate for change. They have that ability that we don't necessarily have, and we also don't have the privilege to show up, you know, one way today and another tomorrow. We are who we are. And so knowing that, and if you truly understand our work and how it impacts so many people, and it will not only impact people of color, trust me, then we all need to come together and be able to take action. And so, you know, our YW, we've talked about it a few times, and we have a community conversation coming up this Wednesday evening if anyone wants to come in and talk about it. But, you know, we've talked about the fact that in order for us to move forward, the YWCA will have to take a radical, you know, step or move in a new direction of how we stand on issues, how we bring more visibility and awareness to the YW and the work that we're doing, but also highlight the numbers, because we will see an immediate change in the numbers, the statistics, as soon as he takes office. And we need to be able to show how that impact is it's negatively impacting our society. And so that may be the role of the YW going forward, but it still falls within the mission, and so it's something that we will have to do. But just like everyone else, I'm fearful of what's to come, but I know I wasn't put here to run from it, and so I'm just gonna have to figure it out.
Thank you. Mary, because of time, do you want to just move forward to your?
No, I was thinking we better go to audience Q&A and
Yes.
get a couple of questions
Great.
from the audience, and then wrap up and eat.
Yes.
So we have 2 mics here. If we can probably fit in maybe 2 or 3 questions. If folks have any questions, you can come to the mic.
While they're coming up, I don't want us to confuse DEI with qualified individual minorities that are best suited for the job and resumes and the background.
That's your brother.
to do it. And I think that's
Tell
gonna be
people
something to watch.
Yeah,
Try to make you seem not as smart or as qualified for a position based off of that.
yeah, which is a theme that we've heard, definitely. Thank you. Yes?
Good evening. To the 4 people on this panel that know me, what I'm about to say doesn't, okay? We can still be friends tomorrow? Okay. I've listened here, and I must truly say I'm very disappointed that some of the priorities and issues in this community have not been addressed, and I'm going to go through them quickly. Basically, housing. We have a problem in this. There's no such thing in affordable housing in Evanston when a home starts at $350,000, and you have to have $70,000 for a down payment. So let's just scratch that. So let us as Evanstonians look into other programs like the Land Trust, where we can encourage people to buy homes and to become permanent members. Let's look at all this vacant land that we have in Evanston. Let's develop it in a way that will benefit our community. Let's not get amnesia. We survived under apartheid. I survived under apartheid in this community from 5 years old till I graduated. And my only connection with Northwestern, because when I finished high school, there weren't 100 black students on NU's campus. But my grandmother fixed greens and chicken for all those athletes that came over every Sunday. And they even came and twisted my arm and made me grad advisor of one of the fraternities, which became one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. To the librarian, I want to encourage you
I'm not
in
the
Black
librarian.
Studies.
The
I'm not the
librarian
librarian.
couldn't make it.
Okay.
Sorry.
She's not here.
But this is more important because it's called the Hersowitz up on the 5th
Herskovitz
floor.
Library. And we're going to ask I want to hear your 4 points, but we also want to get the question behind you, so go
Okay.
ahead.
The question behind that is to open up with Northwestern students. I had Northwestern students coming over to take the black students to the 5th floor to do a paper, especially those from Jamaica and Haiti. So they would have a different impression about coming into this community and being accepted. And the next question for the health department. I hope that you've made an investigation about building the new school. I hope you don't have any lead pipes going into that school. I hope you're concerned about that cell tower with the messages, with all that electricity that's coming right there by our kids. So we need to have more environmental concerns about our community. And lastly, and more important, I want to say this is a good opportunity to start. As I said, my priorities have not been mentioned, but I think this is a place where we can get started. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So we don't have a housing expert on the panel, but I don't know if Mr. Agbo, you want to say a little something?
Right. And thank you for the question. The Health and Human Services Department, we actually have a program that is inclined to mitigate lead hazards in homes where children might be lead poisoned. As far as the school is concerned, the plans for the school, of course, is a collaboration between the city and the school, the Illinois Board of Education and IDPH. They will be reviewing the plans in regards to building the school. I don't know if you're aware of the lead replacement program that the city has, where we are replacing lead-laden pipes. It is a project that is being undertaken by our Public Works Department, and that will also be implemented with the school. So as far as that's concerned, lead, as you know, has been banned since 1978. It's not something that public health encourages. It is something that is banned, and I'm sure that justice will be done when we are building that foster school to ensure that the right materials in terms of piping and other elements are sound and environmentally sound. So I don't think there should be any concern there. These are things that will be evaluated, reviewed, and ensure that we meet today's standards.
And Ms. Parsons said she'll say a little bit about housing.
So the YMCA has been in Evanston for almost 140 years. Our original mission was to provide housing for men. We still have housing for men 140 plus years later. So we have not departed from our mission because we live in a community where we can't. We have to provide affordable housing. As a matter of fact, we have a capital campaign in which we are renovating their rooms going on currently. So if you want to support the housing game and the need to live in a community that still values affordable housing, then I'll be at the back door, and you can give towards the YMCA. So I wish we didn't have to provide affordable housing. I wish I could work ourselves out of that mission. But unfortunately, it is still necessary and needed in this community where affordability is not a main concern in keeping people in Evanston, especially people of color or that have low economic needs or requirements. And because of that, we are committed to it, and we won't go away. We still have a waiting list to this day for men that still need affordable housing, and until that is no longer, we'll continue to do it. So housing remains a priority for our YMCA. And so I just wanted to shout that, because there have been many YMCAs that no longer do housing across the nation, across the world, and we will stay committed to that because Evanston requires us to.
Audrey?
Yeah, we're going to have the two questions. Let's do them one after the other, and then we'll get the answers, and then we'll break, because we're a little over time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Can you
Audrey.
hear me?
Will
Yeah.
you introduce yourself?
Yes, I will. First of all, I wanted to thank the panel for being here. I think this is a wonderful platform. And I want to thank Pastor Neighbors. It's wonderful to be here. My name is Audrey Smith-Moy, from Evanston originally. I live in the town over. We'll talk about that later. And I work for the Wayfarer Foundation, that our main concern, besides being a faith-based organization, is to fund organizations that are looking to justice, and we are looking to do that in a way that the people that are doing the work are leading the way. I'm not going to, I have tons of questions, I'm not going to do that because of time, but I will suggest a few things that I thought about as I was sitting there listening to the distinguished panel. Three things came to mind. Impact, someone mentioned impact. That's what we're looking to really do. We're looking to form impact, especially because we know that in the next few months things are going to change. Someone said to me, it'll be 4 years and we'll be okay. A lot can be done in 4 months. We want to think about DEI in a different way. Laurice and I took a class together, and I'm on my second class now, and I've got a couple of courses a couple of certifications that I have also in DEI. I've always been about that passionately. But we want to think about it in 2 ways. One is maybe intersectionality, and how instead of thinking about it in the term DEI, and that way we can look at what crosses each of these parts of DEI and how we can still make that work. We want to think about privilege, white privilege, as being unearned, because it really is. We have to really find different ways of thinking about these issues that really impact us. And then we want to think about neuroplasticity and the fact that our brains can change, and we can sit in rooms with people that don't look like us and make that happen with conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey.
Good evening. My name is Leandra Cooper. Hi, everybody. I appreciate this as a Evanstonian, raised and left and came back and worked at Evanston, working at Northwestern now, worked in the community. So a lot of touch points. But my question is, in terms of Black leadership and the growth, how do we, again, looking out, seeing a lot of beautiful people here, but we see a big piece of the generation missing. We see millennials not represented. So for those of us who have maybe gone here, or who were raised here and left and come back, those who are at Northwestern who are transplants, I love you too, but how do we connect that gap with that missing generation, right? That 20-something, 30-something, if I choose to stay here after I graduate from Northwestern, if I'm coming back home, what are we doing to gain that interest and garner that interest for those people or for that generation to be the next leaders? So, just something to think about.
Yep, that's an excellent question. It's actually one of ours we didn't get to, so I'm going to ask whoever is most burning.
I'm burning.
Oh.
I'm burning because so this is, first I would say you have to answer that question.
Yes.
Right? But then I would say that we have to treat them right while they're here so that they want to come back. I am one of those who left, and I lived in Minnesota for 10 years, had my son there, quickly, right, brought him back here. But I did that because I remembered my childhood of being raised here in Evanston. And I gave a little wind of that earlier. So we have to intentionally treat our children like they belong here, right? That this is their town, this is their place. Meaning, one of the other questions that we didn't get to is about cultivating the next generation of leaders. It is my responsibility as an obligation as a CEO and an elected official, or as a leader, as a Black woman in this community, whatever title you want to give me, to lead for the next generation. And if they're not my focus, then I'm not doing my job right. Right? So I always say that, many of us leave Evanston, but if we're treated right, if we remember the community, which some of the responsibility, a lot of it falls on the Black community, right? I mean, we got to take some responsibility in this. What are we doing to make sure that we're taking care of our children? What are we doing to make sure that we're showing up in places we need to be in? right? What are we doing to make sure that our obligation to raising our children is doing it right? Right? So when we can have those honest conversations in the kitchen, at the table, and start with us, then I think it's okay to leave Evanston, because guess what? You get to experience the real world. Every place is not Evanston, right? So I want you to leave. I want you to leave and experience the real world, but I want you to remember and come back and lay your foundation. So without knowing completely, the first thing I would always do was put the question back on you, because you are that millennium. So I want you to tell me, what do I need to do? But after that, I'm going to hold you accountable, right? And tell you, then you need to bring other people here. You need to make sure that they're sitting next to you. You need to make sure that they're raising their hand, volunteering, and say, I'll run for school board. I'll be on the council. My voice is missing. You have to do that, because if we don't do that, then we won't continue to be here.
Thank you so much. Oh, go ahead, Saul. You're going to wrap us up. Saul's going to wrap us up.
I just wanted to say really quickly, you know, we actually have incredibly robust leadership development programming at the Evanston Community Foundation, led by Carly Butler. And, you know, we have, you know, young Evanstonians, and we have our public service challenge, where we have elected officials come and talk about what it means to run for public office here in Evanston, right? We have our board leadership development program, December 17th. At 5:30, we have an information session. You can check out evanstonforever.org, and that's for all the specifics, but that is helping folks of color find opportunities to get on boards and commissions and task force here in Evanston. You know, Leadership Evanston has been a part of ECF almost since the beginning. I think we're on our 33rd class. We've got close to 900 LE alums in Evanston and beyond doing great work, and we take the charge of leadership very important. It's very important to us, and we've invested in it continually, and we're working actively to create more opportunity for leaders of color, for black folks, for folks to get into leadership positions and engage here in the community. So that's there. I just wanted to put that out there. And then also to the other question about how we can invest, I think, you know, I point at myself for this, like, philanthropy is gonna have to take up a lot of the charge on sustaining some of this work while government dollars go away. There are, you know, not at ECF, to be clear, but in philanthropy in general. I don't mean we aren't responsible, I'm talking about the money. There are billions upon billions upon billions of dollars in philanthropy. That's what I meant, is not at ECF, we don't have that much. But we actually, like, philanthropy has the resources to do a lot of this work, and not only that, but, you know, when folks are wealthy enough and they say, this is what I want my money to do, it's real hard to unwind that, right? It's real hard to unravel that. And so I think for some of our philanthropic institutions in Evanston and beyond, and some of our family foundations and small funds, we've got to take up the charge of investing in this work and doing it. And we've got to work collectively to be able to do, you know, there's a lot of work happening around funding circles where foundations are coming together and investing in specific things together to put more resources out there. And we've got to do more coalition building of that type. So I think that's just a really important answer to the previous question about and how we support these DEI efforts, is that we're probably going to end up being the last bastion that can push against a lot of this stuff, and we have to take that very seriously for our philanthropic institutions that care about that. So those are the two.
I want to add something that Mr. Sutton didn't touch on, but I know is that group, and just not knowing the history. I think a lot of times we have elders in the Evanston community that have been here that know a lot of history into a lot of why things have changed, or a lot of the trust issues within the city. And I think there's a disconnect in the age group in understanding the history of Evanston, to know, because you see the pride in older people from Evanston that come back to Evanston, not only to live, but to work. It's almost like, you know, I bring up being a fourth generation. Monique's kind of similar, but we choose to be in a job because we want to be home. We could be somewhere else. And I think there's opportunities for us to learn from a lot of people that truly know the history of Evanston, and where some of that, I wouldn't say, I would say it's a different anger than what Sal explained, but you can go to any council meeting, you can go to different things going on within this community where there's a lot of history if you just talk to people, and then you explain that history to those age groups, but understanding that I think is being missed, and a lot of disconnect.
Well, the mark of a successful event is that we are 15 minutes over time and none of y'all have left. So thank you so much. That means you all are awesome. I just want to give a couple of thanks to Laurice Bell from Shorefront, to Black Studies staff, Suzette Denos, Muriel Harris, and Sky Gathers, to the Reverend Dr. Michael Neighbors from Second Baptist and all of the Second Baptist team for hosting us and for your hospitality, for WCAS for funding this, for Nina Wade, whose food we are going to eat from Free Flow Kitchen in the fellowship hall to follow, and finally to our incredible panelists who said yes to coming here tonight. Let's keep this conversation going.
What is her name in your office? Who's awesome?
Lisa. She's fantastic.